What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and we just had our first NFL Sunday, and it was glorious, man. I still feel almost hungover from just 7 hours of commercial-free football, hanging out with the boys, catching up, hanging out, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful feeling. It's a wonderful time. It's also a wonderful time for fantasy. I hope all you guys crushed your matchups out there. I know I got a couple DMs, some Discord messages saying, hey, Ron, thanks for everything you've done. Crushing it this week. I'm like 4-0 in all my leagues, so I'm glad a lot of you guys are doing well, which brings us to our in-season content. Today is Monday, so we're going to be talking about my top 10 takeaways from week one, where I just kind of go through my observations, my thoughts, or whatever, and it's just a way to start off the week by sort of recapping what just happened, and then tomorrow we'll get into waivers, start sits, trade targets, all of that good stuff. So hang in there. As always, if you enjoyed this, make sure you get down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, thirsty, trying to choose. I mean, I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty bag.
Now, I want to say for these videos, I wake up at like 7 a.m., I write the outline, and then I hop on here and I try and get the video out by like lunchtime, like 1 p.m. Eastern. A lot happened this Sunday, man. It's week one. I tried to get this out earlier. I know this is going to go up, we're recording this at 3:41 p.m. You probably won't see it till like 4:35 p.m., which sucks, but expect this video, moving forward around that 1 p.m., 2 p.m. time spot. I'm trying to get it out so you guys can watch it during your lunch breaks. You guys can watch it when you get home from school. All of that good stuff. It's week one. Give me a small break. We're going to get things a little bit tighter as we go. Now, the first takeaway we have from this week, a little bit of a victory lap for the boy. Don't get me wrong. We'll take some of our L's down the line here. But 0 running backs on top, baby. 0 RB is on top, man. If you took a wide receiver in round one, congrats on your W. Now, this is the top 12 ADP from the videos I did where I went through like every single round. This is just the top 12 ADP from 4for4's like 4for4's multi-site tool. This is the top 12 in half PPR points. You look at all the running backs, only one player over 20 points, 3 under 10. And you look at all the wide receivers, it's all above 20. Now, this isn't going to happen every single week, but it just highlights to you the stability and the floor you got from drafting wide receivers, as well as their ability to match running back scoring at the top end. So if you took a wide receiver in round one, congrats on your W. Also, you guys can keep denying, or not you guys, because I know a lot of you guys watch the channel and try 0 RB, hero RB type concepts, but a lot of the boomers can keep saying, robust RB is the way, and, shit on 0 RB or hero RB taking a wide receiver in the first round. But a lot of us out here are feeling pretty damn good. We also had the take in the offseason saying, in the first round, take one of these top 5 wide receivers. They're going to be elite top 5 difference makers. They've looked the part so far. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that these running backs in round one are dead, though. I think McCaffrey bounces back. I think Dalvin Cook bounces back. I think Eckler bounces back. I think Derrick Henry bounces back. It just illustrates it after week one. I think the running backs will close the gap over time, but the idea that wide receivers can't compete with running backs at all, I think is disproven at this point. Now, the next take that we have, legendary running back watch is what I put down. But you guys know that I'm chasing legendary upside at running back, which is something that Pat Carrenas coined based on a 20% plus win rate, which pretty much brings your implied odds of like 1 out of 12 to 1 out of 5, just based on having one of those 23 plus point per game running backs. Think of Todd Gurley, McCaffrey, 2017 to 2019. Think of Kamara in 2020. We didn't have one last year, but it's important to note kind of who is still in the mix to have that kind of, McCaffrey RB1 overall type season. And this is the short list that I've come up with after week one for those guys that I think are in the mix to be the RB1 overall in the season. First, we have Saquon. Saquon is so back, fellas. He is so back. 33.4 PPR points as the RB1 overall, most rushing yards, most PPR points. He also looked like himself. He's 25 years old. He looks like prime Saquon. Like, he looks like the Saquon that we were promised. And he was out here with the second fastest ball carrier speed yesterday with a 21.1 mile per hour reading on like a 68-yard rush. He led all running backs in snap share as a bell cow. 33% target share, led all running backs in target share. He's a bell cow. He's getting targeted. He led his league in route, or he led his team in route participation. He is the RB1, the wide receiver 1. He is everything on this team. He had 25 touches. He is in the conversation for RB1 overall rest of the way. Top 3 running back right now, rest of season, at worst. Then we have DeAndre Swift, who I'd also say is in the mix. A little bit weaker of a claim than Saquon. Now, I know Jamal Williams vultured 2 touchdowns. People are going to be very upset about that or very concerned about that. But DeAndre Swift still had 144 rushing yards, which was a concern coming into this year that he wasn't that good between the tackles. He wasn't a great PFF rush grade type guy. I believe yesterday he had the best PFF rush grade, or one of the best. He goes out here 144 yards, 26.5 points. He had 66% of the backfield. So the split with Jamal Williams on the goal line wasn't great. But snaps, routes, short down and distance snaps, long down and distance snaps, passing down roll, pretty much this is operating as a 65-35 split, which in the modern NFL is really all you can ask for at the running back position. Now, Swift only had 3 targets. That should go up, along with Williams dominating the goal line carries. Now, I don't think the goal line carries are going to hold for an entire season. We had last season as a full sample, and DeAndre Swift on the goal line was used 50% of the time. It was about an even split in terms of red zone touches between Williams and Swift. I imagine it stays the same, and then all other touches remain split 65-35, which in that role, catching as many passes as he does, should be enough to be in the mix for RB1 overall on the season. Then we have Jonathan Taylor, which nothing has really changed here. 27.5 points. He's still the guy that we thought he would be. Then we have McCaffrey. Disappointing 15.7 point week, but he still has a shot, just given that he has put up, 25 to 28 point per game type seasons before. He can take on one of these bad games and still be amazing. He was only one of 3 running backs yesterday with an 80% or better snap share. He was on the field for all of the red zone snaps. I believe better days are ahead for CMC. And the last running back I'll put in the mix. So Saquon, Swift, McCaffrey, Joe Mixon. Someone that I said didn't have legendary upside, finds himself as one of the front runners for legendary upside. He had 21.5 points. He had 34 touches. And I'm not taking my L, but I'm always down to pivot early. If Mixon's going to catch passes, and he did yesterday, then he's in that mix. I just didn't see a target share manifesting itself after 4 years of him never seeing more than 43 targets in a season. Now, I believe that he had 9 targets yesterday. It might have been a career high. He saw 17% target share, which is really, really high for him. And if this holds, he'll be in the mix for that legendary RB season. Now, he only had 21.5 points. I say only just because, like, the Swifts of the world, Saquons, JT, they all cleared 25, right? Mixon had a career day, only hit 21.5. So I'm really just putting him in here, giving him the benefit of the doubt, because if that target share holds, then he's probably in the mix, but it wasn't an insane day. Now, maybe that target share holds with the T. Higgins concussion. I will say Samaje Perine was still using the passing game. He had a 9.4% target share, so he's not completely out of the woods in terms of having the passing down work on lock. But after 34 touches yesterday, a 20-plus point game, he's at least in the mix. Now, 3 more names I'll toss out there that aren't completely dead, but I'd probably take them out of RB1 overall consideration at this point. Eckler, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry. They all had not so great days. I think all of them had like under 12 PPR points. I do think they'll all be in the top 3 to 5 range as like 19 to 21 point per game scores, but that, RB1 overall season, like Todd Gurley, like McCaffrey in recent years, I think you can probably close the door on that, but maybe give him a few more weeks. Now, our third takeaway, lesson learned, whatever you want to call it, is the Eagles are passing the ball at a high rate. Who would have thought? And when we look at what the Eagles did here yesterday, this is a really cool chart. It's pass rated over expected by Sam Hoppin on Twitter. And when we look at the Eagles, they were 11th in pass rate over expected, which is really, really strong. They had 42 dropbacks on the day. Hurts averaged 34 dropbacks per game last year, and he only topped 42 dropbacks twice. So this game was already way up there in terms of pass volume for the Eagles compared to last year. This is not going to be a run-heavy team. Now, I know that they ran the ball a ton because Jalen Hurts scrambles, but we're talking about calling pass plays, right? Just because Hurts had like 32 pass attempts, but he had like 42 dropbacks. we care about them running pass plays. We'll give Jalen Hurts, if he runs an undesigned scramble, that's fine. But Sirianni is trying to pass the ball, and he's trying to pass the ball a ton, and that's why we're seeing A.J. Brown go crazy. As long as A.J. Brown is on the field, this is going to be a pass-happy team. They're not going to be the same run-heavy team they were in the past. Jalen Hurts is going to run the ball a ton, but in terms of scheming up pass plays, they're going to hover in that 10 to 15 area, which is much higher than they were last year as like league bottom in pass attempts and pass rate, all of those kinds of stats. Now, this is a great stat just on A.J. Brown and how good he is on a per route basis. And now that we're giving him an environment that is going to call pass plays at like the 11th best rate right now, A.J. Brown is knocking on the door of that top 5 wide receiver tier of like Jefferson, Kupp, Chase, Diggs, Devontae. A.J. Brown is right there at wide receiver 6 right now. He posted a 95% route participation. He had a 44% target share per Dwayne McFarland. He accounted for 70% of the team's air yards, and he posted a 3.97 yards per out run. Cooper Kupp last year was the only wide receiver with over a 3 yards per out run. A.J. Brown demanded a shit ton of targets. He was extremely efficient. This team is going to have enough pass attempts to support him in fantasy. It's really exciting for A.J. Brown. I also think that better days are yet to come for Devonta Smith in an environment like this when they're going to pass the ball. With just a quiet day for him, I do think that he has a bounce back in him. I don't think that he has wide receiver 1 overall, or not wide receiver 1 overall, but just like top 12 upside. But I could see Devonta Smith flirting with wide receiver 2 numbers, even with A.J. Brown ahead of him. Now, I figured we would cover all of the pass rate over expected stuff together. So this next takeaway, which I believe is takeaway number 4, is Mike McDaniel's a sharp. I thought he was going to be kind of a goof. He had a couple interviews where he was talking about the run game and establishing the run, and it didn't really seem like he was going to run too modern of an offense, and he's coming from a 49er scheme that runs the ball a ton. But he came out here, and from a play calling standpoint, this is everything we could ask for. He led the NFL yesterday in pass rate over expected, and this is a great tweet from Tej Seth. He's a guy over at PFF, and he also said, along with his highest pass rate over expected, he also went for it on 4th and 7 at midfield, which led to a touchdown right before halftime for the Dolphins. So he's making aggressive decisions. He's passing on first down. He's passing over what would be expected of him. That's all we want for fantasy. We want a guy who's going to pass the ball a lot. We want a guy who's going to be aggressive. And on top of that, he's consolidating the targets. He's spending them wisely, is what I would say. I don't know why it took so long to get to that word, but the only 3 players that had over a 10% target share on his team yesterday, Tyreek Hill, Chase Edmonds, Jalen Waddle. Now, if you go to a team like the Chargers, they're going to have a lot of targets for DeAndre Carter yesterday. I do really appreciate Mike McDaniel scheming touches, scheming plays up for his best players on offense. So he's really allocating his touches diligently, and he's running an offense that passes the ball more than you would expect. He's passing on first down. That's everything we want for our fantasy offense. Now, Tyreek Hill out-targeted Jalen Waddle by a lot, but I think they'll probably go back and forth every week. You had Waddle score the touchdown. You had Tyreek Hill play really well. I think both guys are going to be in the mix for top 12 wide receivers, and if this offense passes at this rate, we're going to have a lot of fantasy profit from this offense. Then we have don't panic on the Jets. All right? Don't panic. They lost 24-9. Elijah Moore only had 9.9 points. Breece Hall only had 10.1. But this was against a really strong defense. All right, this was against PFF's number 1 secondary coming into the season. They brought in Marcus Williams. They brought in Kyle Hamilton. They had a healthy Marcus Peters. This was a Ravens team, or this was a Jets team that was overmatched in week 1. But from a play calling standpoint, I am really impressed with LaFleur, where when we look at what he did yesterday, I believe it should be here. Nope. We look at what he did yesterday. They ran 79 plays. That was 3rd in the NFL yesterday, but you have to also remember the 2 teams that were ahead of the Jets in total offensive plays called were teams that played in overtime. So of teams that didn't play in overtime, the Jets ran the most plays. So they ran a ton of plays, playing with tempo, playing with pace. They were 9th in pass rate over expected, so they're throwing the ball. And they only finished with 9 points. I believe they didn't have a single touchdown yesterday, but they finished 13th in the NFL in total offensive yards. So I think the touchdowns are going to come. I think it was a really tough matchup against this Ravens defense, but in terms of play calling, in terms of moving the chains, getting yards, having a bunch of plays, I believe that Flacco had like 59 pass attempts. We're passing the ball a ton. There's a lot of tempo on this offense. I think better days are yet to come in easier matchups, especially after the bye week for the Jets. That's late in the season, like week 10, week 11, but after that bye week, I do think that with the schedule lightening up, we're going to see a lot of fantasy points from these Jets players. Now, I also think that the running backs have a lot of upside. Breece Hall only 10 points, but I believe that he led the NFL in targets at running back. Both Breece Hall and Michael Carter had 9 or more targets. I think that's more a Flacco thing than anything else, just sort of targeting shallow running back routes, but it at least opens up the possibility that either one of these running backs could see a lucrative pass role going forward. Now, the one guy who really disappointed was Elijah Moore, right? Only 9.9 points, but I think that this is going to be a good offensive environment, right? I think there's going to be a lot of pass attempts. I think there's going to be a lot of plays. And at the very least, he is the established wide receiver one, where he was on the field for 89% of the routes, and then you just have a three-way rotation between Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson, Braxton Berrios. So Elijah Moore is always going to be on the field. He's always going to be that wide receiver one. I think that they will feature him more going forward. He pretty much caught a passing touchdown, but he got like offensive pass interference for pushing off Fuller, I believe. If that doesn't happen, Elijah Moore scores a touchdown, and nobody's really talking about his quiet game. So I would say just be patient with the Jets. Wait for the schedule to open up a little bit more. The early on play calling, pace stuff from LaFleur looks really promising early on here. Now, the last note I have from our passing over expected chart, right, which I believe is right here, is don't put too much stock into the Bears and 49ers number, right? They're way down on the bottom there. Didn't pass the ball a ton. Everybody in those games were really ugly as well, right? Where the only San Francisco player to top 10 PPR points was Debo. Everything was ugly. I would say sort of just throw this game out. I don't think there's going to be a lot of takeaways from this game outside of a couple that I'll sort of outline here. And it's that Trey Lance did look bad, and I've already seen noise on the timeline of they should bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, or not they should bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, but how long is Trey Lance going to be able to fend off Jimmy Garoppolo? Oh, Jimmy G should probably get traded to the Cowboys, but I don't think the Niners would be so quick to do so with how Trey Lance looked yesterday. Trey Lance was just in his 4th start yesterday, literally playing in a monsoon. I really wouldn't hold that against him for his future outlook, but we can take away for fantasy, as J.J. Zacharyson points out here, is Trey Lance was the QB 25 on the week. That's not good, but he ran the ball 13 times, which trailed only Jalen Hurts in rush attempts. Trey Lance has the upside to be this year's Jalen Hurts. He's already on that trajectory. I do think better days are ahead when he's in better environments, not playing in the rain. Like we even saw Justin Fields was like sliding around at the end of the game. It was just ugly altogether. You can't really throw in that weather. I wouldn't put a ton of stock into how Trey Lance looked or what his output was. I would just trust that the points will be there, especially if he's going to run the ball 10-plus times per game. Now, on the other side of that, Justin Fields looked really good. Now, the box score is bad. He had like under 50% completion percentage, but I think in terms of being a winner and playing a good game at quarterback, I think he did amazing. I think he did everything that he was asked to do. He had 2 touchdowns, constantly making plays. You had that one where he's, taking his 5-7 step drop, and he's getting pressure, and he rolls out to his left, buying time. That's what he's been doing a lot of. I've been absolutely loving how much Getsy is getting him on the move. So Luke Getsy, OC from the Packers, getting him on the move, doing bootlegs, all of that, letting him buy time out there. Because once he gets out of the pocket, he can almost freeze time where he's so fast that even like a trailing defender, he can just turn the Jets on a little bit more, sort of hold them out there, make it look like he'll run, and then find a play downfield. He had this one where he rolls out to the left and he finds a guy wide open. It was on one of the touchdown passes. He rolls out to his left, goes across his body, across the field to a wide open wide receiver. He brings it in for a touchdown. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, but he was wide open. It takes so much awareness to evade pressure, roll out to your left, and then look not towards your sideline, but the other sideline, and then make that throw that far away without, a defender jumping it. I thought it was a great play. I thought he looked amazing. He also had a career high in rush attempts, which is really promising moving forward for him in fantasy, where Luke Getsy is designing run plays, is designing bootlegs for him. It's all Really, really exciting for Justin Fields. Now, again, I know the box score wasn't pretty, but I do think in terms of real life NFL, that was a very promising game from Fields. And then we also have Darnell Mooney and Brandon Ayuk. Both looked bad. Both had 3 targets or worse. Again, I think better days are to come. It was a bad weather game. I even underestimated myself. I thought things were going to be fine, but it rained harder than I think anyone imagined, and it got ugly. It happens to the best of us. I think both offenses will bounce back and look fine in clear weather. Then we have tricky backfields. And I didn't really write any notes down for this, but I thought it would be interesting to look at sort of how opportunities broke down for backfields. The first one is I was going to make its own header for this, but I'd rather just do it with all of the running backs here. Dameon Pierce hype train coming to a screeching halt. I don't know why I can't talk. Screeching halt here. I know a lot of people were telling me, hey, man, how come Rex Burkhead is the presumed third down back? Why can't Dameon Pierce be the bell cow? Dameon Pierce wasn't even the bell cow at Florida. And you guys knew that was my hesitancy. He never really commanded a ton of volume at Florida. I was sort of reversing my thoughts on him, moving him up rankings because it seemed like he climbed the depth chart, was going to be the bell cow. And we come out here, and he gets 12 opportunities to Rex Burkhead's 22. Rex Burkhead was out there in all third down and passing downs. Pierce is pretty much the between the tackles grinder on not a great offense. It's not great, but he is a rookie. Maybe he can sort of earn more volume. But if you draft him in like the 4th round in your redraft league or 5th round, where I've seen him go a million times, you're looking in rough shape. I'm not sure how he pays off on that, even when he does take over the starting role. Then we have Robinson versus Etienne, which was really tough. It sucks too because Etienne was doing well or maybe doing well is the wrong word, but he had a couple spots where he could have scored easy touchdowns. He made a dumb concentration error. Now, Trevor Lawrence did throw it high where he had like a swing pass in the red zone, easy walk-in touchdown. He drops it. He had a fumble. He screwed up in every possible way, Travis Etienne, which is really concerning because then James Robinson comes in. He looks amazing. The few bright spots for Etienne here is I'm not full-blown panicking yet. He had a really good usage where he had, I believe, 100% of the goal line work. He had 100% of the passing downs. He's getting targets. He's getting goal line work. It's not great that they're sort of losing trust in him because of the fumble, because of the drops. So we need those to stop really soon. Those kinds of things aren't sticky either. So that can correct itself. And then on top of that, he looks really good running the ball. I believe that he had like a top 5 PFF rush grade. I want to say he had like over 40, 50 yards on the day. He looked good between the tackles. I think better days are to come for Etienne. He's in a really good usage role. We just can't have him making dumb plays from here on out. Then we have Kenyon Drake, Mike Davis. Nothing really to see there. Kenyon Drake, I guess, is the main guy there, but nobody was really sure before then. Of course, we already know from Thursday night, Darrell Henderson over Cam Akers. Michael Carter and Breece Hall pretty much split down the middle. This is also what we expected, where Michael Carter would be 1A to Breece Hall's 1B early on in the season. It is promising that it almost seems like Michael Carter is their preferred between the tackles guy and Breece Hall is the preferred passing down guy, which isn't what you would be led to believe from their college profiles, but Breece Hall had more targets. I believe Carter had more carries. We'll kind of see how that splits up as things go on. That's always sort of been the play, is that Carter would be the guy early on and then Breece Hall would earn volume as the year goes on. It's just really promising for Hall that he saw so many targets today, or that these running backs saw so many targets. I think that they will be, I don't know what the right word would be, but I think they'll be even better for it, just having those targets to go around. It adds to their ceiling if they're going to be that featured in the passing game. Then we have Dylan and Aaron Jones. I wouldn't be too worried about Aaron Jones just yet. Again, we talked about this before the season. I said I think both guys can be fantasy relevant at the same time. This was an A.J. Dillon week. He scored on the goal line. He had 16 opportunities to Aaron Jones' 10. I believe A.J. Dillon even had like 6 targets to go with that. But Aaron Jones was still, he led the team in routes, in route participation, as almost their featured number 1 wide receiver. I think better days are ahead for Aaron Jones. I don't think that after scoring, I think they only scored 7 points this game. They looked really bad. I think they looked really bad against the Vikings. I think they come out, sort of tweak things on offense, get Aaron Jones a little bit more featured. Again, I wouldn't panic just yet. He's going to see efficiency. He's going to see his pass touches. It's not going to be the A.J. Dillon show all the time. I think both guys are going to be startable. Maybe Aaron Jones goes from a guy who was a back-end a guy with like top 5 to top 8 upside at running back to a guy who is probably more in that, 16, 17, 18 point per game area as like a RB7 to RB10 type. We'll see. Again, I think efficiency will come his way. I think there's a chance that he becomes like the future wide receiver in this offense, so I wouldn't bail on Aaron Jones just yet. Now, I believe that this would be takeaway number 8. Takeaway number 8. And it's the rookie wide receiver report. I wanted to just kind of draw this up and see how things shook out for this week. And what I did was I took all of the wide receivers' targets, routes, target per out run, and yards per out run. So we know how many targets did they command, how many routes did they run, and routes run just sort of computes to how high are they on the depth chart. Now, I could have done, route percentage of like total routes to kind of shrink it down for games like the Steelers game where it went into overtime, but it's simple to look at it like this. Then we have targets per out run, yards per out run. So we know how high are they on the depth chart for how many routes that they ran. Target per out run shows us how much volume are they commanding on a per route basis. Are they earning targets? And then yards per out run tells us how much efficiency these wide receivers have. And we see up top, Drake London, Garrett Wilson look amazing. Both guys over 5 targets. Both guys over 30 routes. Both guys over 20% targets per out run. Drake London with a really, really solid 2.47 yards per out run. Garrett Wilson with a 1.49. Both guys really promising. Look the part of being the only 2 wide receivers in this class to go in the top 10. Then we have Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, Chris Olave, all up there in routes. Not amazing in terms of targets, target per out run, yards per out run, but they've all climbed their depth chart to be the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. I think efficiency and production should be coming for those guys. You can make the same case for Alec Pierce, but I think that his are a little bit emptier where he's running wind sprints. Maybe he can start earning production, earning volume. We'll see. Then we have Romeo Doubs, who had 5 targets, 25 routes, 20% target per... Good Lord. 20% target per out run, 1.48 yards per out run. And then you have Treylon Burks in a similar boat where he had 5 targets as well, only on 13 routes with a crazy target per out run and a crazy yards per out run. Now, those are juiced by a small sample, but on that small sample, he was extremely impressive in terms of Burks, where he's commanding targets and he's being efficient. I think both Romeo Doubs and Treylon Burks should be climbing up their depth charts as the week goes on, or as the weeks go on. They look good out the gate here. And then we have Kyle Phillips, who I don't know that he'll be super interesting for redraft fantasy, but he looks a lot like the Hunter Renfrow of this class, where he's going to be this unsexy slot wide receiver that looks good on a per route basis, gets slept on his entire career. But I think that if he continues this route of just being this day 3 wide receiver out of the slot that sort of just carves this rollout, he could be a Hunter Renfrow, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, whatever white slot wide receiver you want to compare him to that went day 3. Then we have Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas might be in the top 10 wide receiver conversation, is my 9th takeaway. He had a 27% target share. You had 40 dropbacks for Jameis, where they're actually letting Jameis Winston cook yesterday. Michael Thomas had an 83% snap share despite having a weak hamstring. He had 5 catches, 57 yards, and 2 touchdowns on a stud corner and A.J. Terrell, who didn't let up a single touchdown last year. Really impressive game for Michael Thomas. 5 catches for 57 isn't a ton. I think that will go up as the year goes on. Again, A.J. Terrell is not an easy matchup. And I think at this point, 27% target share, again, over 20 PPR points. We're talking about a guy that after the big 5, right, so Jefferson, Chase, Kupp, Devontae Diggs, and then after A.J. Brown, he's right in that conversation as a back-end wide receiver 1 after this game if he keeps it up going forward. Then we have our last takeaway, our last lesson learned, and it's that targets are earned, not given, signed Amon-Ra St. Brown. We saw last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he commanded a 30% target share. He had like a 25 point per game. People were saying Hawkinson wasn't healthy, Swift wasn't healthy, he can't do this, he can't do that. Everybody in the barbershop talking this nonsense about Amon-Ra St. Brown. And we see him come out here, and courtesy of Dwayne McFarland, we see him register a 93% route participation. So he's a starter. He's out there on 2 wide receiver sets, and he logged a 32% target share in week 1. That is his 7th consecutive 30% target share or better game, and he did it with Hawkinson, with Swift, with DJ Chark. All of the nonsense about Amon-Ra St. Brown being more of a product of his environment versus him actually commanding targets and being a good football player can almost certainly be put to rest at this point. Amon-Ra St. Brown, rest of year, wide receiver 2, lock him in. He's that guy. He's simply that guy. He commands targets. He's good at football. That's all there is to it. There is no more mental gymnastics that need to be done. Goff likes him as a target. He's efficient. He scores. There's really nothing else to it. Now, that is going to do it for us today. That is our top 10 takeaways. I will be honest, there were even some things I couldn't get to talk about that I wanted to get to talk about, like David Montgomery's, timeshare that he's in, a bunch of other stuff. Cordell Patterson's usage, but we only constricted to 10 takeaways. It's only week 1, so we'll sort of get to things as we go on during the week, whether that's in the matchups call or matchups video, anything like that. Now, that is going to do it for us today, our top 10 takeaways video. Let me know if there's anything you want me to add to this type of video. Like I said earlier, I want to get this out earlier to you guys. I know you guys are going to be feeding on lunch break, coming home from school, wanting some analysis on what happened on Sunday. So trust me, moving forward, I'll try and get this out in that 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern area. As always, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. It helps the boy out a ton. Comment down below. Also, be on the lookout. We'll be doing a waiver wire video tomorrow, trade targets after that, and then we'll be doing our matchups for running backs and wide receivers on Thursday and Friday. So Tuesday waivers, Wednesday trade targets, Thursday, Friday, our running back and wide receiver matchups, every single matchup, all of that good stuff. So be on the lookout for that. Post notifications on if you want to know when I post those videos, if you want to know when I go live. And that is going to do it for us today, fellas. And I will see you in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice.
Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Meaner.